And the way we learn as kids is we follow our parents. It's what Mary Neal and I were just doing as we were sweeping. She was following me as I swept, and she was trying to figure out how to do it herself. But the thing that we always discover as kids is that there's things that our parents can do that we can't. There's only so far that we can actually follow. We see something similar in our text today in Mark chapter 14. Let's look at that together. Mark 14, verse 27 to 28. And Jesus said to them, "You will all fall away, for it is written, I will strike the shepherd and the sheep will be scattered. But after I am raised up, I will go before you to Galilee." If Jesus asked you to follow him, like he did his first disciples, how far do you think you'd get? Would you last for a moment, or would you stay to the bitter end? I think most of us would like to say that we'd be with him to the very end. But as Mark 14 reminds us, not even Jesus' closest disciples were able to do that. All of them, every one of them fell away, leaving Jesus to stand alone on the threshold of the cross. None of them, not one of them, thought it would end up that way. When Jesus warns them yet again, as he has time and time again, that he's going to die and be raised, every single disciple, they swear they will go to the grave with him, that they will never leave him and they will never forsake him. Yet no sooner do they swear this than the first fissures start appearing in the facade. Jesus is whispering anguished prayers to his Father in heaven. He's begging his Father to tell him if there is another way, while at the same time submitting himself entirely to his Father's will. And the disciples, the men that Jesus asked to keep watch with him, to be his support in his time of trial, they're sleeping. And when Judas and the crowd come to arrest Jesus, and Jesus, for reasons the disciples don't understand, Jesus refuses to fight back and says instead, "Let the scriptures be fulfilled." In that moment, that fissured facade, it cracks and it frays and it crumbles to dust. In the text, it simply says, they all, every disciple, they left him and fled. How far would you follow Jesus? According to Mark 14, not very far. Left to our own power and faced with the choice between the Father's will and our comfort, we will always flee the one to pursue the other, just as every other human being has since Adam. Every human being except one. The disciples, in the face of the Father's will, they fled. But Jesus stayed. He submitted to the Father's will to the bitter end. And he submitted for this purpose, that we would stand, not on our own, but in him. That just as by the disobedience of the one man, the many were made sinners, so by the obedience of another, the many would be made righteous. That as the stricken but risen shepherd, he would gather scattered and fleeing sheep to himself once more, but this time is something greater, a body that is bound to him not by the strength of their own commitment, but instead by the strength of his. How far will we follow Jesus? On our own, not far. But in him, as those united to him, we will follow him through death itself and into resurrection life. Because we now stand in the one who stayed where we fled, who obeyed where we fell, and in joining us to himself gives us not only his strength, but his very record. We fled, but Jesus stayed, and he stayed for us. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit. Amen. As we walk away from this, just a couple questions I'd ask you. Where are you putting your confidence today? Is it in the strength of your commitment, or is it in the strength of Jesus's? Is it in your effort, or is it in his record?